Smash the like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments what you would have done. Because tonight's story isn't just about love. It's about a lie so convincing it stole $500,000 and shattered lives across 2 continents. The rain fell hard against the glass walls of the downtown Chicago bank, turning the city lights into streaks of gold and red. Inside, under the cold glow of fluorescent lighting, Emily Carter sat frozen in a leather chair, her phone trembling in her hand. Across from her, a bank investigator leaned forward slowly, his expression careful, almost rehearsed. "Ms. Carter," he said, voice low, "we believe you've been the victim of a coordinated financial fraud." The words landed like a gunshot. Emily blinked. "That's not possible. I know him." But even as she said it, her voice sounded distant, unsure. On the table between them sat a stack of printed wire transfer confirmations. Each page carried her signature. Each transfer a different amount. 10,000, 25,000, 50,000. Over and over. Total transferred. $497,320. Sent across multiple international accounts over 6 months. All to one name. Ethan Parker. The investigator slid another document toward her. A photo printed in grainy black and white. A man stepping out of a private jet, sunglasses on, tailored suit, a confident half-smile. The same man from Emily's Instagram messages. The same man who had called her every night. The same man who had promised to marry her. "Do you recognize him?" the investigator asked. Emily swallowed. "Yes," she whispered. "That's Ethan." The investigator hesitated, then leaned back in his chair. "That photo," he said carefully, "was taken from a luxury travel magazine. The man in it is a European business executive who reported his images stolen months ago." The room seemed to tilt. Emily stared at the photo again, her heartbeat thundering in her ears. "No," she said quietly. "That's not true. I've spoken to him. I've seen him on video calls. Her voice broke. The investigator slid a tablet across the table and tapped the screen. Multiple images appeared, the same man in different settings. A yacht, a private dining room, a helicopter landing pad. "All stolen," he said. "Every image, every video clip, used in scams across at least 7 countries." Emily's stomach dropped. Outside, sirens wailed somewhere in the city, growing louder, then fading into the distance. Inside that small glass office, the reality settled in like a slow-moving storm. 6 months earlier, Emily had been living a quiet, predictable life. 32 years old. Marketing manager. Recently single after a long relationship that ended without warning. Her evenings were quiet, Netflix, takeout, occasional scrolling through Instagram before bed. Then one night, a message arrived. "Hello, Emily. I know this might sound strange, but I saw your comment on a travel page. You seem like someone with a beautiful soul." She almost ignored it. The profile belonged to Ethan Parker. Verified badge. Over 200,000 followers. Photos of luxury hotels, business class flights, charity events, and high-end restaurants. His bio read, investor, entrepreneur, London and Dubai. She responded with a polite thank you. He replied instantly. Within days, they were talking every night. His messages were thoughtful, attentive, almost old-fashioned. He asked about her childhood, her dreams, her favorite books. He remembered small details. He sent voice notes, warm, reassuring, with a faint European accent. "You deserve someone who sees you," he told her once. "Not just someone who looks at you." It felt different from anything she'd experienced online before. 2 weeks later, he asked to video call. The connection was slightly blurry, the lighting dim. He explained he was in a private lounge at an airport in Istanbul, about to board a flight. He looked exactly like his photos, well-dressed, composed, charming. He smiled when he saw her. "I finally get to see you," he said softly. Emily felt her guard drop completely. Over the next month, their relationship intensified. He sent flowers to her office. Expensive ones. He arranged a surprise delivery for her birthday, a designer watch with a handwritten note, for the woman who changed everything. Her friends were skeptical. "He sounds too perfect," her best friend Lauren warned over coffee one afternoon. Emily shook her head. He's not. He works constantly. He barely sleeps. He's under a lot of pressure. That part, at least, was true. Ethan began mentioning problems. Business rivals. Frozen accounts. Delayed transactions. International regulations. Always temporary. Always solvable. I hate asking you this, he said during one late-night call, his voice strained. But I'm in a difficult situation. A deal is closing, and my accounts are temporarily locked during a compliance review. If I don't move funds within 24 hours, I could lose everything. Emily hesitated. I'll pay you back immediately, he promised. With interest. I swear to you. The first transfer was $8,000. He repaid it within 2 days. The second was $15,000. He repaid that too, quickly, with extra. Trust grew. Doubt disappeared. Then the requests became larger. More urgent. More complicated. Wire transfers to business partners. Emergency payments to legal teams. Short-term loans to unlock larger investments. Each time, he promised repayment within days. Each time, something went wrong. A blocked transfer. A frozen account. A sudden tax issue. By the time Emily realized she was sending money without receiving anything back, she had already transferred over $300,000, pulled from savings, retirement funds, even a home equity loan. But Ethan always had an explanation. Always a reassuring voice. Always a plan. Until one morning, 3 weeks ago, when his messages stopped. No calls. No replies. No online activity. His Instagram profile vanished overnight. Emily sat in her apartment staring at their old messages, refreshing the screen again and again. Then, the bank called. Back in the glass office, the investigator placed one final document on the table. We've been tracking this operation for months, he said. Multiple victims across the US, UK, and Europe. Same method. Same photos. Same voice recordings. Emily's chest tightened. How many? She whispered. The investigator met her eyes. At least 12 confirmed victims, he said. Total losses exceeding $3 million. Emily's world went silent. But then he added one more sentence, the one that changed everything. And yesterday, he said quietly, sliding a surveillance photo across the table, we believe we finally captured a real image of the man behind the name Ethan Parker. Emily looked down at the photo. Her breath stopped. Because the man staring back at her was someone she had seen before. The photo trembled in Emily's hands. At first, her mind refused to process what she was seeing. The surveillance image was slightly blurred, taken from a distance, inside what looked like an airport terminal. A man stood near a currency exchange counter, baseball cap pulled low, casual jacket zipped halfway. He looked ordinary, forgettable. Nothing like the polished billionaire she had fallen in love with. But she knew that face. Her pulse pounded in her ears as recognition settled in. I've seen him, she whispered. The investigator leaned forward immediately. Where? Emily's throat tightened. She swallowed, forcing the memory into words. At a conference, she said slowly. Last year. A marketing technology conference downtown. He wasn't a speaker, just there. I remember because he asked me for directions to one of the breakout rooms. She stared again at the image. Same eyes. Same faint scar near the chin she'd noticed back then, but forgotten until now. He used a different name, she added, her voice unsteady. Daniel. I think he said his name was Daniel. The investigator exchanged a look with his colleague across the room. Something in the air shifted. The quiet tension of a case suddenly gaining direction. That's important, he said. Very important. He stood and walked to a wall-mounted board filled with printed photos, transaction charts, and timelines. At the center was the familiar face from the fake Instagram profile, the real businessman whose identity had been stolen. Surrounding it were smaller images, screenshots of messages, bank accounts, travel records. And now, the new surveillance photo. The investigator pinned it to the board. For months, he said, we believed this operation was being run entirely online, a network of scammers using stolen identities. But if this man is physically present in the U.S., it changes everything. Emily watched as he circled the photo with a red marker. He's not just a digital ghost, the investigator continued. He's real. And he's moving. A cold chill ran through her. Does that mean, she hesitated, does that mean he could come back? The investigator's expression hardened. We don't know his next move yet. But scammers like this rarely stop voluntarily. They build systems, networks, multiple identities. If he's here, he may already be targeting someone else. The thought made Emily's stomach twist. Another victim. Another life quietly unraveling the way hers had. What can I do? She asked. For now, he replied gently, just help us remember everything. Every detail. Every conversation. Even things that seemed unimportant at the time. Over the next 3 hours, Emily retraced 6 months of her life in painful detail. Every late-night call. Every message. Every promise. Investigators recorded it all. The tone of his voice, the phrases he repeated, the times he typically contacted her. They built a psychological profile in real time, mapping patterns across multiple victims. He creates emotional dependency first, one analyst explained. Then introduces controlled financial crises. He builds trust by repaying small amounts early on. Classic escalation model. Emily sat quietly as they dissected the relationship she once believed was real. At one point, they played back a voice recording Ethan had sent her months earlier. His voice filled the room, warm, calm, reassuring. I would never hurt you, the recording said softly. You're too important to me. Emily closed her eyes. Across the table, another investigator adjusted his headset. We've isolated the audio signature, he said. We're running it through international databases now. Hours passed. Outside, evening settled over the city. Office lights flickered on across neighboring buildings, reflecting against the glass walls like distant stars. Then suddenly, a sharp tone sounded from one of the computers. A match. Everyone in the room turned. The analyst stared at his screen, eyes widening. We've got something. The lead investigator stepped closer. Talk to me. Voice recognition match, the analyst said, barely containing his excitement. Partial but strong. Same vocal patterns used in at least 4 other fraud cases across Europe over the past 2 years. He tapped a few keys, pulling up a new window. A different name appeared on the screen. Adrian Volkov. Nationality, unknown. Suspected in multiple international romance fraud operations. Wanted for questioning in Spain, Germany, and the Netherlands. Known for using at least 12 aliases. Emily felt the room spin slightly. That's him, she asked. We're not 100% confirmed yet, the investigator replied, but it's the strongest lead we've had. He pointed to the surveillance image again. If Adrian Volkov and Ethan Parker are the same person, then we're not dealing with a small-time scammer. We're dealing with someone who's been operating globally for years. A silence settled over the room, heavy, charged with possibility. Then another analyst spoke from across the room. There's more, she said slowly. Financial tracking just flagged a new transaction pattern. Same structure as the previous victims. Same routing through shell accounts. The lead investigator turned sharply. Location. She hesitated. Chicago, she said. Initiated less than 48 hours ago. Emily's heart dropped. He's still here, she whispered. The investigator nodded grimly. Yes. And based on this activity, he's already working on his next target. He walked back to the evidence board, studying the timeline. His jaw tightened as the pieces began to align. If we move fast, he said mostly to himself, we might finally catch him before he disappears again. He turned back to Emily. One more question, he said. Did he ever mention meeting you in person? Any future plans? Travel arrangements? Emily hesitated, thinking back. Then her eyes widened slightly. Yes, she said slowly. 2 weeks before he disappeared, he said he was coming to Chicago. He told me he'd finally be free from all his business problems. He said we'd meet at a hotel downtown. The investigator's expression sharpened instantly. Which hotel? Emily's voice felt distant as she answered. The Grand Lakeshore Hotel. Across the room, an analyst began typing rapidly. Seconds later, she looked up. her face pale. "He checked in there yesterday," she said. The room went completely still. Because if the man behind the $500,000 scam had just checked into a hotel in Chicago, then for the first time in years, the person known as Ethan Parker wasn't hiding behind screen anymore. He was within reach. If this story pulled you in, don't look away now. Hit subscribe, drop a like, and stay with this case until the very end, because what happened next changed everything. The Grand Lakeshore Hotel stood like a polished monument along the Chicago waterfront, its glass exterior reflecting the gray winter sky. Inside, business travelers checked in, couples crossed the marble lobby, and staff moved with quiet efficiency. To everyone else, it was just another luxury hotel. To investigators, it was the center of a global fraud case. Two unmarked vehicles sat across the street. Inside one, Detective Laura Mitchell watched the entrance through a pair of binoculars, her eyes fixed on the revolving doors. "Confirmed check-in under the name Daniel Hayes," a voice said through her earpiece. "Room 1812. She lowered the binoculars slightly. "He's getting sloppy," she murmured. "Or confident," her partner replied from the passenger seat. For nearly 2 years, the man they believed to be Adrian Volkov had operated across continents, without ever being physically linked to his crimes. Every identity he used dissolved before authorities could reach him. Every account vanished before it could be traced. Until now. Inside the hotel, plainclothes officers moved quietly through the lobby, blending in with guests. One sat at the bar, pretending to read emails. Another stood near the elevators, phone pressed to his ear. On the 18th floor, 2 more officers waited near a corner hallway, positioned where they could see room 1812 without drawing attention. "Any movement?" Detective Mitchell asked. "Negative," came the reply. "No one's entered or exited in the last 30 minutes. She checked her watch. "We wait for confirmation he's inside." Across the city, in a small operations room, analysts monitored financial activity in real time. Screens displayed transaction alerts, location pings, and communication logs. Then suddenly, one of the analysts leaned forward. "Activity," he said. "New login to one of the flagged accounts." A map lit up on the center screen. The signal came from inside the Grand Lakeshore Hotel. "Room-level Wi-Fi match," the analyst confirmed. "He's there." Detective Mitchell exhaled slowly. "That's our confirmation." She stepped out of the vehicle, adjusting her coat against the cold wind. Her partner followed. Inside the hotel, the elevator ride to the 18th floor felt longer than usual. The quiet hum of machinery and faint instrumental music did nothing to ease the tension building in the confined space. When the doors opened, 2 officers nodded from the hallway. "Still inside," one whispered. Mitchell approached room 1812 carefully. Every step felt deliberate, controlled. Years of experience had taught her that suspects like this were unpredictable, not violent, but desperate when cornered. She positioned herself beside the door and knocked firmly. A pause. Then movement inside. A man's voice came through the door, casual, unsuspecting. "Just a moment." Mitchell met her partner's eyes. This was it. The door handle turned. When the door opened, the man standing there froze instantly. For a split second, surprise flashed across his face, followed by something else. Recognition. He knew exactly who they were. "Daniel Hayes." Mitchell asked calmly. He didn't answer. Instead, his gaze flicked down the hallway, calculating distances, exits, options. Years of deception had trained him well, but this time there was nowhere to run. "Or should we call you Adrian Volkov?" she added. Silence. Then, slowly, his shoulders dropped. The performance was over. Within minutes, he was in custody. No dramatic chase. No resistance. Just a quiet surrender in a hotel hallway where luxury travelers walked past without realizing they were witnessing the end of a global fraud operation. At the station, questioning began immediately. At first, he said nothing. He sat calmly, almost relaxed, as if this were just another inconvenience. Another identity he could eventually abandon. But the evidence against him was overwhelming: financial records, voice matches, travel data, and testimony from multiple victims across different countries. One by one, investigators laid it out. Finally, after hours of silence, he spoke. "You think I forced them," he said quietly. "They chose to send the money." Detective Mitchell leaned forward slightly. "You built lies designed to manipulate them," she replied. "That's not choice. That's deception." He gave a faint smile, not proud, not ashamed, just detached. Over the following weeks, more victims came forward. Women and men from different parts of the world, all with nearly identical stories. Identical promises. Identical emergencies that required urgent transfers of money. The total amount traced back to him surpassed $3 million. Emily watched the news coverage from her apartment one evening, the glow of the television reflecting in her eyes. When his mugshot appeared on screen, she felt a strange mix of emotions: relief, anger, and something harder to name. Closure, perhaps. Months later, the case moved through the court system. Prosecutors presented a detailed timeline of deception spanning years. Defense attorneys attempted to minimize the scale, but the pattern was undeniable. In the end, the verdict was clear: guilty on multiple counts of fraud, identity theft, and financial exploitation. As the sentence was read, he showed little reaction. No apology. No visible regret. Just the same calm expression he'd worn the day they arrested him. But for the victims, the outcome meant something far greater than prison time. It meant validation. It meant the world finally saw what had been hidden behind private messages and carefully crafted lies. For Emily, rebuilding took time, financially and emotionally. Trust did not return overnight. But slowly, life moved forward. One evening, nearly a year after the arrest, she received a message from an investigator. They found another account connected to him. It read, "Unused. Draft messages saved but never sent." Attached was a screenshot. Emily opened it. Her breath caught. The message draft was addressed to a new name, another potential victim who had never known how close they came to being pulled into the same web. The opening line read, "Hello, I know this may sound unexpected, but I believe we were meant to meet." Emily stared at the screen for a long moment. Even after his arrest, the system he built had been ready to continue, ready to move on to the next person without hesitation. She closed the message slowly, because the most unsettling truth of all wasn't just how convincing his lies had been. It was how easily they could have continued. If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one, hit subscribe so you don't miss it.